Writing Ratface, a point-blank limited series on the process of writing a 50,000-word first draft. This is your host, Justin Bendell, and this is episode 3. I am experiencing that part of the writing process that most writers feel when they get to the quarter point of a story and haven't fully fleshed it out. In the first 2 weeks, I've written roughly 8,000 words, and I'm feeling pretty good about how I have portrayed setting and how I've portrayed Ratface as a character. He is morally ambiguous, it seems, at this point, but you can see him potentially as a hero. He hasn't seen it in himself yet. He doesn't have the self-esteem or self-reflective capabilities yet to consider himself a hero. And even if he did, that's not the kind of hero you really want to root for, somebody who makes the assumption that they're heroic by default. That's ego and narcissism talking, and there's a danger level there that moves a character closer to villainy. He doesn't know that he might be heroic in the future, but he does have the seeds of potential in the way that he behaves in the city with his interactions and in the position he's in between Lex, the mystery of Lex, and with this kid who he now has to kind of take care of, but he doesn't really have that skill set. And there's a lot of people who want to kill him. There's a lot going on, so he has opportunities to grow, to change, to evolve into something that he wants to be, if he wants it. That's the question. Now, it's not just about whether or not he has this capability, it's whether or not the seed of potential in him, this idea of being able to become or grow into heroism, is something that will hold a reader's interest. And typically the hero's journey does that, particularly a reader who is looking for a heroic character story. And oftentimes we find that in any of these post-apocalyptic style adventure stories. You got to root for something. Things are pretty bad. Either we take the noir path, where things are bad and then they get worse because our characters keep fucking up and making poor decisions, or they become anti-heroes or heroes and do some good, and in some kind of way we root for them and are eager for them to achieve, for them to grow, for them to become something more than they are currently. We'll see what happens with Ratface, but the seeds are there and we can see them. That's the goal. I want the readers to know what paths might be taken in the future and not to assume that everything has been forecasted in one direction. Because if we know where Ratface is going to go from page 1 or from page 20, the story is going to be boring. It'll just be a paint by numbers. We want that ambiguity. We want to see him as somebody, a real human, a real life form who doesn't have some kind of predetermined path. When I mean heroic, in this case, I am speaking probably anti-hero, who has the potential to do good, to be good, to fight for whatever in the story. I don't have enough of a plot at this point to know precisely what that is going to be, or to feel comfortable with my writing for this week to tell the story straight. I'm writing Ratface in the direction of some possibilities and some seeds being planted here and there, little Easter eggs, little seeds that might emerge and become something of value down the road. We'll see what happens. I will report back in the next episode to let you know where we went, what happened with Ratface, where did he go, what did we learn about him, and of course the other characters. These are some areas to contemplate or develop. These are the things that I'm thinking about in week 3. Something about the young girl character is going to be important. This is the character I've been calling the kid. I don't know much about them yet. I don't even know it with 100% clarity if they're a girl. They might be something else, either ambiguous or not even necessarily human. I don't know yet, but it's okay. For now, I call them the kid, which is, in my head, I refer back to Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, and I think of the kid. But that's not what's happening here, as far as I know. I think I need to flesh out the motives and names of the organization. What is this shadowy group? What do they represent? Are they just my generic stand-in for the mafia? The black market mafia in a city with no political superstructure intact? I don't know. I think I need to develop the organization more. I also need to deepen my understanding of the underground movement that's been alluded to. There's the Soviet district. There's this sense that there are active rebels organizing strategically, but we don't really see evidence of them, in part because we keep hearing about the terror squads, who are essentially like Nazis, who get swept out into the city to go take care of anything. See evil, speak evil, hear evil. Citizens report it, at least the ones who don't recognize that they're narking out their own people. But this happens. This happens now, and it happens in this post-apocalyptic future, even though this is largely a working-class city hyper-exploited by a number of nefarious forces. We'll get to that down the road and clarify what that looks like, but I think I need to develop a little bit of that underground resistance. What does it look like? Who are the players? And how does that pollinate Ratface's experience and who he is as a character and his development? Perhaps I need to do a little bit of fictional research to understand what precisely has happened in this world. What was the war about? I don't know. I just said this is a post-apocalyptic city of 73 million people. I know what city it is. I know what I'm modeling it off of. But it isn't like I've done a whole bunch of research. It's a city that I've been to. And I'm excited about imagining that city transformed into this half wasteland, half megalopolis. And yet, I don't know much about what led to these conditions. What material conditions led to essentially Armageddon. So, why is the Earth in a state of post-nuclear apocalypse or winter? How and why is this particular city thriving? Why is this city, of all the cities and of all the spaces on the planet Earth, why is this one doing well? Are there others? Do these cities communicate? Are there key major population centers in the world in this apocalyptic Earth where most of the people live? Is the rest wasteland? Why? Is it wind patterns, or was the nuclear apocalypse so great that entire just landscapes and cities and regions were wiped out? And how does climate change play a role in all this? How high are the seas? How warm is the world? Is the city where I've kind of set this story 5 degrees warmer than it is today? 10 degrees? 20? Do we actually change ecotones or ecosystems? Has the biological life, has the ecology of the world migrated hundreds or even thousands of miles to the north or to the south? These are questions it would be good for me to answer. My first degree was in wildlife ecology, so I'm deeply interested in ecological questions. But I've done none of that research for this story because, for one, research, especially if you're operating as a pantser, somebody who needs to write to accumulate a word count, to make progress, to let the ideas blossom on the fly while you're writing, then research can get in the way. It can hinder the creative process. I'll often write an entire draft and then I'll go back and go, what the hell did I say? That makes no sense. Let me do the research and fill in the blanks and make the correctives. So that's something I'll have to do. I'm not sure if I'll do it this week. To get answers to the questions will probably help me overall to figure out where Ratface goes next and why. Something tells me that he needs to spend more time with his kid in a role that was previously occupied by Lex. So we get to see him getting practice as a father figure. Not only will I think this is humorous and humanizing, watching this bumbling loudmouth with a penchant for trouble, Ratface, in this predicament with a child trying to figure out how to navigate the world of child rearing on the fly like we're going to see. I think that it's important for the development of the relationship between himself and the kid, because he'll learn something about himself, and maybe that will reflect on his relationship with Lex and help him to see whatever's happening a little bit more clearly and put his past into perspective. And this will also set up the dynamic of the trouble that's inevitably coming, because as he grows to like the kid, maybe as he grows to have affection for the kid and even love and admiration for this child, if that child is taken away from him, if they're kidnapped, if they're killed, if something happens, he's going to have that Mandy-esque desire for revenge to win them back. We could assume that whatever trouble is coming would come from the organization. But we can't know for sure, because I'm not sure if I've written all the bads that are going to be in this book. I think I have some ideas for some, and I know that some are coming that at the point of recording I know about, but at the point of writing my notes, I hadn't. So we can't know for sure who the big bads are going to be, but the organization is definitely one, and I do need to do some writing to develop whatever other ones exist so that we can start to get a sort of a sense of the superstructure of villainy in the city and why some or all of them might be after Ratface. So that's going to be an interesting part of this week's recording, and I'll stop there. What I'll do is read a couple pieces, a couple snippets from this week to let you in on sort of where I went with the story, and maybe even explain some of the logic, if any, that I calculated during or after the writing process. And then I'll end with another note about week 3 so that you can get a sense of the thoughts I was thinking throughout the week, because it's not just a sit down and write my plan for the week. It's thoughts I have over the course of the week. Sometimes they occur when I'm driving to work. Sometimes they happen during my typical writing session. Sometimes they happen at 3 a.m. This is the first narrative snippet I wrote in week 3. And you can see that it's discussing the kid. It's talking about the relationship between Ratface and this child, which I've barely done. And I wanted to try to play out that dynamic a little bit, give it some meat, give it some texture. So I'll read this. It's just 146 words. And then I'll read a dialogue between the two. What would they want with her? She's a dumb kid. She's not important. Unless she is important. Who were her parents? Maybe they are more important than Ratface realizes. Maybe the organization wants to find them. But she said they were dead. No, Ratface assumed this. She said they disappeared. Fuck, he thinks. I need to talk to someone who might know. Wolfen said Lex and Perix got along. Ratface set down the falafel, wiped his mouth with his sleeve. I'll find Perix and ask her, he decides. But finding Perix was harder than finding Lex. Perix had disappeared too. Where did everyone go? Immediately, Ratface thought of sweeps. The squad had picked up the rabble and erased them. It happens every year. But usually, there are whispers in the street when the terror squads come through. Ratface hadn't heard anything. So in this snippet, I introduced a new character that I pulled out of my ass. I introduced the tension of the terror squads and how they come and do their sweeps, and how something was different this time. What was different? I also reminded the readers that Ratface eats a lot. I feel like I have him going into a noodle shop or eating falafel every other scene, so that's something I'm going to have to pare down as I draft further. But I love writing about characters eating food, so I'm going to continue to do that because it feeds me, literally and figuratively. No, mostly figuratively, though it makes me hungry. So here we are, a little bit of Ratface brain candy as he processes. I have another piece here that I wanted to share. Now, this is dialogue between Ratface and the kid. Again, keep in mind, this is all first draft. I've written it once, I've saved it, and I've done very little editing. I just clean up whatever is obvious editing typos and stuff, but I haven't gone through and said, let me see what I need to keep and what I need to toss away in the second draft. So here's a little bit of dialogue between the two that I think, I don't know, illuminates both characters just a little bit, helps me to understand who they might be. See, kid, I gotta work. I can't sit around babysitting you. I'm 12 years old, kid says. Yeah, so? I'm not a baby. Well, I ain't a babysitter, Ratface says. I mean, she adjusts her seat, clears her throat, clearly annoyed. I mean, I don't need to be babysat. Yeah, but I can't leave you here. Why not? 'Cause men are trying to kill you. Not just men. Right, Ratface says. He looks at her warily. You don't seem scared. Why aren't you scared? The girl shrugs. They don't bother me. But they should. Death is forever. She shrugs again. I know how to get by. Ratface chuckles. I see. You're stupidly brave. You've never been in a fight, but you think you can take all comers because you've read about fights in a book. Is that it? Tough in your head? No experience on the ground? Full of cocky fantasies and distortions? The girl shrugs, looking to her shoes. Apprehend me, she says. What? You mean grab you? Pretend I'm with the organization. Ratface shakes his head, smiling. You are something. I'm going to half-heartedly grab you, and you're going to show me some trick you learned to impress me, make me think that you're some kind of super-skilled black belt. Then, when the going gets tough, you're going to get smashed because the tricks you can play on me in a safe setting don't work in the streets. Is that what's going to happen? She stares at him blankly. Ratface expects a crying jag, but she holds it back. Or maybe she's not going to cry. Apprehend me, she says. In a flash, Ratface has her twisted, spun, and immobilized. He pins her in place, her face smushed against the dust and detritus of the sunroom floor. You see, kid, the real world ain't what you think. Here come the waterworks. She will weep, feel hopeless, hate herself. He will build her up again, make her a true fighter, the kind of kid that Lex would be proud to call his own. But again, no tears, no emotion at all. Look, she says, signaling with her eyes for Ratface to look behind him. He turns. The kid is standing behind him, holding his crackler. The weapon, cocked and loaded, is aimed at his head. I don't know if that's clear, but the character here, the kid, has been pinned to the ground, and yet when he turns, she's behind him. So what's pinned to the ground? Is this some kind of mirage? We'll see. We'll see what it is. But for now, you know what's happening. In week 3, I'm trying to develop this relationship between the kid and our main character, Ratface. The last point for this week is a note I left for myself on September 20th. This is still in week 3. It is 3 a.m. on September 20th, and I am writing Ratface in the middle of the night because I cannot sleep. I lay in bed and play chess on my phone with one of my colleagues for an hour. Then I lay listening to my heart. I get up and retreat to the couch. The couch is my emotional and physical sanctuary. This is true. It's been like that since I've been recovering from heart surgery. When I can't sleep, when I can hear my heart, or when anxiety triggers me to wake up in the middle of the night, and I then hear my heart, which is very loud. I can hear it pounding or clicking because I have a new valve, and I'm not used to it yet. So to me, if you can hear your heart, you're in trouble. So I get that little bit of anxiety trigger, and I can't sleep, especially in the bed in the dark. It feels too isolating, and solitude elicits fear. So I go out to the couch and put on some dumb television, and it's a nice distraction. It just pulls me out of the anxiety. I focus on something else for a while, but I also end up with my phone talking to myself or writing notes, and that's what I was doing on this night. I was thinking about Ratface, and I was thinking about how I really love talking. It's not the text edit document that I love. I love talking out the story. I find myself spending more time dictating the story into my phone than I do writing the story with my fingers. I feel more productive than when I'm staring at the blinking cursor. I tell myself what Ratface is doing. I ask myself questions about Ratface, and then when I'm done, I write it all down. Do I know where it goes when I'm talking? I do after I say it, because when I say it, it gains a bit of gravity. It becomes sort of a planet in itself. Some of the ideas I have begin to lock into the story and become real and important, and almost as if they were always there. That's the beauty of creation. We get to play God when we write, and that's what happens when I'm talking about Ratface. I manifest his world and his feelings and his experiences in real time, and then I transfer them to paper where I clean them up a little. But overall, it's my brain transferring this world onto the page. And I got, on this night at 3 a.m., I got 1,800 words talking about Ratface and guiding him through this world. I also got 5 minutes of podcast content. This is how I make art. This is how I communicate my thoughts when all else fails. And more often than not, all else does fail. So to those who are writers who struggle with so-called writer's block, sometimes the way in which we write, the methods we use while we write, get in the way of our writing, get in the way of our creativity. Don't let that stop you, or don't let that become an excuse and go, well, if my one method doesn't work, then I can't do it. I'm sorry, but I call bullshit on that. I say, okay, well then trick yourself. You know yourself better than anybody. Try something different. If sitting down and saying I'm going to write doesn't work, stand up. If standing up doesn't work, go on a walk. If going on the walk doesn't percolate anything, do something else. Jump rope, pick up a guitar, pick up a book, make a bowl of soup. Do something different, all the while going, I'm chasing this thing. I really want it, and I'm chasing it, and I'm trying to figure out where to find it. Where is it? Where's the location of the muse or the inspiration I need to free up my mental process in a way that allows me to create? I often say, I'm not writing today. I'm not writing in any serious way. And I'll tell you this, I pretty much do this every day. I go, I'm just brainstorming. It doesn't matter. The stakes are so low, they're almost non-existent. Who cares? Nobody's going to see this shit. Nobody's going to read it. It doesn't matter. It's likely going to be cut anyways. So just roll with it. Ratface does some insane, wild shit, and a lot of it's not going to make it into the final draft, but that's okay. The point is that I'm learning about this world every moment that I'm thinking about it, and I won't know until the end what sticks and what doesn't, but all of it matters, and it doesn't matter whether or not you think it's high stakes now, or high stakes later, or high stakes never. The point is that there's something being built, and some of that's going to be very good. So, on that note, this is week 3. And next week, week 4, I'll be discussing where I am with Ratface then. And given that I've already written week 4, I know where it is. And I look forward to discussing it with you. All right. See you next time.